Gas transport in the blood. In this video, we will discuss how gases are transported in the blood and how that affects blood pH. Let's start off by discussing Dalton's law of partial pressure, as it is important in order to understand the physiology of gas transport. Partial pressure refers to the pressure of each individual gas in a mixture of gases. This law states that the pressure exerted by a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of each individual gas's partial pressure in the same volume. So, if the total partial pressure of a gas mixture is 200 millimeters of mercury, and this mixture is made up of 60% carbon dioxide and 40% oxygen, the partial pressure of oxygen in this mixture is 80 millimeters of mercury, while the partial pressure of carbon dioxide would be 120 millimeters of mercury. Now that we have discussed what partial pressure means, let's talk about oxygen transport and the oxygen dissociation curve. Air is pulled into the lungs and the alveoli because of the action of several muscles, including the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. These muscles create a negative pressure gradient in the lungs, forcing air from the outside world to fill the lungs. However, it is the difference in the partial pressure of the gases carbon dioxide and oxygen which drives the movement of gases from the alveoli into the bloodstream. As a rule of thumb, matter usually moves from a higher pressure environment to a lower pressure environment. Oxygen is poorly soluble in blood. To put it into perspective, carbon dioxide is 20 times more soluble than oxygen in blood. In order to overcome this problem, oxygen binds to the protein hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a protein made up of 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains, with 4 heme groups. These heme groups are made up of porphyrin rings with an iron ion in the middle. The association of hemoglobin to oxygen can be depicted using the oxygen dissociation curve, where the y-axis is the percentage saturation of hemoglobin and the x-axis is the partial pressure of oxygen. This graph shows us that in low oxygen partial pressures, such as respiring tissue around the body, oxygen dissociates from the hemoglobin molecule. On the other hand, at high O2 partial pressure environments, such as the capillary bed that surrounds the alveoli, oxygen binds to the hemoglobin molecule. The oxygen dissociation curve is not static, meaning that it can shift to the right or to the left, depending on the conditions of the body. For example, the curve will shift to the right if blood pH becomes more acidic, meaning a decrease in blood pH, increase in carbon dioxide in the body, increased body temperature, and increased 2,3-biphosphoglyceric acid. If the curve shifts to the right, it means that less oxygen is bound to hemoglobin under the same oxygen partial pressure, causing more oxygen to be free for tissue use. The opposite is true if the curve shifts to the left. Now let's talk about carbon dioxide transport and homeostasis. Carbon dioxide is transported in 3 main ways in the blood. A small amount is transported dissolved in the blood. Some is transported bound to hemoglobin, which makes carboaminohemoglobin. And most of it is transported as bicarbonate ions in the blood. The reaction to form bicarbonate ions is catalyzed by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase inside the red blood cells. The bicarbonate ions formed by this reaction are then released into the blood, and chloride ions are taken in to the red blood cell so that the electric charge in the red blood cell's membrane will remain in equilibrium. This is called the chloride shift. When it comes to the transport of carbon dioxide in the blood, it is worth noting 2 important effects. The Haldane effect, which is the promotion of carbon dioxide dissociation that results from the oxygenation of hemoglobin, and the Bohr effect, which states that there is decreased oxygen affinity to hemoglobin when the blood pH decreases due to increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood. The reaction discussed earlier, which is catalyzed by carbonic anhydrase, acts as a pH buffer in order to maintain blood pH at ranges suitable for human life. If you look at the equation shown, you will notice that exhaling carbon dioxide is equivalent to decreasing hydrogen ions in the blood and increasing blood pH. On the other hand, increasing carbon dioxide concentrations in the blood is equivalent to increasing hydrogen ions in the blood and decreasing blood pH. The control of ventilation will be explored in another video, but it is worth noting that ventilation is sensitive to the partial pressure of oxygen and blood pH, among other indicators. The formula to calculate blood pH is the same to calculate any pH buffer, where A- is the dissociated acid and HA is the undissociated acid. When it comes to the blood, this formula is as follows. The kidneys also play an important role in maintaining blood pH. For example, in respiratory acidosis, the kidneys retain bicarbonate ions and excrete hydrogen ions, which helps increase blood pH. However, bicarbonate ions and the partial pressure of CO2 are still high. On the other hand, in respiratory alkalosis, the kidneys retain H+ hydrogen ions and excrete bicarbonate ions, which helps decrease blood pH. However, bicarbonate ions and the partial pressure of CO2 are still low in this case. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And comment if you find any inaccuracies. Thank you.